मैंने गो लाइव क्लिक कर दिया है.
Live, sir. We are live, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone, and we are back today with another edition of Researchers Week on Haryana chapter of AIOTA. Today we have with us two very eminent occupational therapists in their own regions in India. Pooja Singh, who is a co-founder of Aram Varanasi. She has 10 years of experience in the field of occupational therapy post her graduation, and she would be sharing her dissertation work with us today. And we also have with us Soumyakant Sahu. He is another prominent person in the city of Hyderabad. He's the in charge occupational therapist of Little Stars Hospital in the Department of Occupational Therapy. Soumyakant has 8 years of experience in occupational therapy post his graduation, and he would also be sharing his research work with us. Soumyakant has been a receiver of multiple awards in the National Conference of Occupational Therapy for best paper in neurology. So I hope the two speakers, their content would be a treat for all of us on the Haryana chapter. The objective of Haryana chapter of this program, Researcher Week, is to disseminate what occupational therapists are accomplishing in their graduation, post-graduation, and otherwise to larger communities in general, to OT community, to people or general public who might be listening or viewing this program. That's what the intention is. The intention is advocacy of occupational therapy to share what the depth and width of occupational therapy profession is. So I welcome both of you, and I would like to invite Dr. Pooja Singh to start with her presentation. Pooja, you are on mute. You can unmute yourself.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Pooja, and I have done my master's from Manipal, and post that I am working in Varanasi, running my center Aram, which basically work with children. So today I am here to present my dissertation work in my master's, and if my screen is yeah, is this visible to?
Yeah, it is coming. It is coming.
Yeah. So today I am here to present my dissertation work, which is sensory problems in children with epilepsy. So starting with, as we all know, that epilepsy has a neurological origin, and that alters the neurophysiological mechanism, which consequently affect the motor and sensory processing of the environmental inputs. Due to this neurological involvement, both motor and sensory involvement we have seen in epilepsy. Motor involvement includes tonic and clonic posturing of limb, and sensory can range from altered sensoria to have sensory registration and discriminatory function. Based on sensory integration theory by Ayers, the sensory process of input received by sensory system such as tactile, visual, and kinesthesia provide base for emergence of body scheme, which further contributes for the perceptual and behavioral development.
Excuse me. Sorry, ma'am, to interrupt in between.
Yeah.
Actually, your screen it's not visible. It's totally black there. So
It's not coming.
yeah, it was there, but now it's totally blacked out.
What happened? Now is it seen?
No, it's not coming.
It's
I
not
mean,
coming.
it says that you have started screen sharing, but
Yes,
the content is still to, still to be shown. The content, are you already on a PowerPoint or something?
I am on the PowerPoint.
You can start the presentation. You start the
Yeah,
presentation, I think it will come up.
yeah.
Is it coming?
Not
No,
yet.
yeah.
Maybe you can stop the screen sharing once and do it again. Stop the
Okay.
screen sharing.
Okay. Or make, or maybe I can start.
The screen sharing has stopped. Now you can try again.
Okay.
Yes. Now it has come. You can go to the presentation mode.
Okay. But the problem is the window has opened.
We can see your screen now, but you can go to the correct file, but we are able to see your screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. Just some another point has been opened. So just opening the
Maybe
correct
the
one.
file name. Maybe
Yeah.
you should, open the file. We are able to see your screen now, but so no problem. Yeah.
Is
Go to
it
the
coming?
presentation mode. Yes, yes. Yes, we are able to view.
Okay. So sorry for the disturbance. Yeah. Now they have. So earlier I said in the SI theory, IOS has focused that the sensory process of input received by sensory systems such as tactile, visual, and kinesthesia provide base for emergence of body scheme, which in turn contributes for the perceptual and behavioral development. Epilepsy, because of its neurological origin, may arise due to defect in single or multiple location involving cortical and subcortical areas in brain. It is assumed that the sensory integration function primarily function to occur at subcortical or brainstem level. These areas attribute for sensory integration processing. The areas attributed for the sensory integration processing are brainstem, thalamus, vestibular nuclei and their interconnection, reticular formation, cerebellum, limbic system, temporal and parietal lobe. The role of cortex is related to praxis abilities, which are direct consequences of normal sensory integration occurring at lower system. Consequently, we assume that epileptogenic focus involving in any of these areas can interfere with sensory processing and integration abilities in these children. So, need for the study. Why I did this study because we had seen sensory disorders in all another things, but in epilepsy we see there are lots of behavioral problem, but there is no as such explanation for that. However, defect in sensory registration and modulation has not well documented in children with epilepsy, which we see in our clinical practice daily. Therefore, the purpose of this research is to study the sensory responsivity pattern of children with epilepsy and compare it in children with typical development and global developmental delay. Research question is there any significant difference between the score of children with epilepsy, typical children, and children with a global developmental delay on infant toddler sensory profile? And how is the responsibility pattern between group of the sensory profile items? Aim is to determine whether the sensory profile can discriminate children with epilepsy from children which are typically developing. Methodology: cross-sectional descriptive study design with a convenient sampling method were used. Total 120 participants between the age group between 70 to 36 months were included. Experimental group comprised of 30 children with established diagnosis of epilepsy, which were referred to Occupational Therapy Department, Manipal, and the other two group were developmental delay and typical children. Inclusion were children with epilepsy diagnosis, children with developmental delay, and typical children with no any another medical history. Age was up to 3 years. Exclusion criteria was any medical condition like autism, ADHD, or restricted repetitive or stereotypical behavior or cerebral palsy were excluded from the study. Deaf and blind children. So I used infant toddler sensory profile as my assessment tool. The infant toddler sensory profile is sensitive enough to differentiate sensory processing difficulties in children with disability from their typical developing peers. In infant toddler sensory profile, there are two groups. One is for birth to 6 months and other is from 6 months to up to 3 years. This sensory profile include two sections. One is sensory processing sessions, which include general processing, auditory processing, visual processing, vestibular, tactile, and oral sensory processing, in which there are raw scores which are further calculated. Now there are 4 quadrant also, that is low registration, sensation seeking, sensory sensitivity, and sensation avoiding. In this, threshold scores are calculated by summing the sensitivity and avoiding quadrant score. Lower score indicate a higher frequency of response. Now these questionnaires were given to the caregiver. One, as I have earlier said, birth to 6 month questionnaire, which include 36 items related to these sensory systems, general, auditory, visual, tactile, and vestibular. And the another one, 7 to 36 months, have 48 items in the above 5 category, plus one more category is there, that is oral sensory processing. It's a Likert scale, and the parents or a caregiver responds the behavior on that. The frequencies of the behavior are scored as always, frequently, occasionally, seldom, and never. Always means almost 100% of the time, and never is a child does not demonstrate this behavior at any point. Data analysis, I used chi-square test to observe the difference in the performance of typical children, children with global developmental delay, and children with epilepsy in the 5 sensory processing session. Differences in the scores obtained on the 4 quadrants, that is low registration, sensation seeking, sensory sensitivity, and sensation avoiding. These were also analyzed by the chi-square test. SPSS version 16 was used to conduct the analysis. Now result, these are the sample characteristics of the data, basically how many male and female, and the mean age of and their mean age. Result of my study demonstrated that there were significant differences in the performance of typical children, children with global developmental delay, and children with epilepsy on infant toddler sensory profile. High proportion of children with epilepsy, that is more than 25%, demonstrated definite difference in auditory processing section and visual processing section. In tactile processing section, 10% of the children with epilepsy demonstrated definite difference when comparing the performance of these three groups. On vestibular processing section, more than 30% of the children with epilepsy showed definite differences, and in oral processing, 6% of the children showed differences when compared with the other group. In the children with global developmental delay, only 3% of them showed definite differences in vestibular and oral processing section, which was half of the group in epilepsy. So the children with epilepsy were showing more sensory difficulties when compared to global developmental delay group. 30% children with global developmental delay and 50% children with epilepsy demonstrated definite difference on the quadrant 1, that is low registration, on the sensory profile when compared to typical children. Here also the children with epilepsy had more issues when compared to the normal children. On quadrant 2, that is seeking behavior, children with epilepsy and the global developmental group both demonstrated definite differences, but the percentages were higher for the epilepsy group. Comparing the performance, as I had already said, the sensory profile consists of items. There are items which demonstrate the behavior of a child. So when I analyzed each item, I found that each category, 3 of the 5 categories, that is auditory, tactile, and vestibular. So in these categories had the highest number of items in which children with epilepsy demonstrated frequent behaviors. So auditory, tactile, and vestibular were the system in which the items were showing the items which epileptic children were showing more items in these 3 categories. These observation is important because these categories represent the most commonly examined sensory items in the literature of sensory integration. So when we talk about sensory integration, we often talk about vestibular system and tactile and auditory. Basically vestibular, but since in sensory profile, vestibular system has less item. So in my study also, vestibular systems, the item were less which were showing frequent behaviors. 8 items for auditory, 8 items, for example, auditory items 6 and 12, visual item 14 and 19, and tactile item 31, vestibular item 32, 37, and 38 were very common for a typical children demonstrating sensory seeking behavior. So in this point, I'm basically trying to say that these of the items, these of the behaviors were very common for the typical children also, and these were falling under the quadrant of sensory seeking behavior. So we can say that up to 3 years of the age, there are certain behaviors which are very common for the typical children also. These finding is similar to the result of Erner and Dunn, who established a high incidence of behavior in sensation-seeking quadrant for typical children. Overall, 12 items. The 3 groups did not show much difference. This might indicate that these common behaviors are not very reliable for discriminating purpose between typical children, children with global developmental, and children with epilepsy. So we should, a caution must be observed in drawing interference on these items. So the certain behaviors were common for all the three groups. Conclusion, the sensory issues seem to be more common in children with epilepsy, and their responses vary from hypersensitivity to hyposensitivity, hypo to hypersensitivity. Sensory issues experienced by children with epilepsy are much more common than found to be. Defect in sensory processing and integration might be responsible for the behavioral problems that occur in children with epilepsy. And before that, there was no study which were talking about sensory issues in children with epilepsy. So none of the study was showing that the behaviors which we see in epileptic children has a sensory base. That is why I decided to do this study on the epileptic group. Thank you. Recommendation, I would only say that the study is only done on one particular region. So we can do this study on a larger scale and establish a sensory pattern for epileptic children. Thank you so much.
Hi. So it was a really informative presentation from your end, ma'am. It was really good. So this is a very new thing to us, for just to know about epilepsy and sensory are interrelated. So it was really good. Thank you so much for your presentation, ma'am. Now we are moving on to our next speaker, Dr. Soumyakant Sahu. So he's Manish sir has already introduced him previously. So now let's move in for the next topic. So, sir, the platform is all yours.
Thank you, Pulkit. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I think before I go to, ma'am has to stop sharing her screen so that probably I can share mine.
So the option will be there on the screen, ma'am, to stop sharing the screen on the Zoom.
On the top it will be going. Top of the screen.
You have to open Zoom window first, and then it will be shown there. Pooja ma'am, are you still here? Ma'am, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Maybe you
Yeah.
can remove me and then I can join back because.
Yeah, we'll tell you. We'll tell you. Just a minute. We'll wait.
Pulkit, is my screen visible?
Sir, no, sir, you're not visible, sir.
I think then ma'am has to stop, then only I can share.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yes.
so you can remove me and then I can join back again.
Just give me 2 minutes. I'm doing it.
Pulkit, can you make me the host again? Can you make me the host again? Let me see if the screen sharing rights are,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
because it says you are viewing the welcome, Pooja's screen,
Yes, sir.
right?
Exactly.
So can you
Exactly,
make
sir.
me the host again? I'll see. I'll check whether it is possible on my end.
Okay, sir.
Mine will be gone.
Sir, you are the host now, sir.
Okay. Okay, Somakant, can you try sharing your screen?
Yeah, sure. Just a minute.
Yes, we are able
Is
to.
it?
Yes, we are able to see
Yes,
your
yes,
screen. Please
yes.
go
It's
ahead.
there now.
Right. Okay. So, give me a moment. Let me minimize this. Okay. So, good afternoon, everyone again. First of all, I would like to thank Manish sir for creating such platform. Also, the team of Haryana chapter of AIOTA. I mean, from the inception, I got to know like such kind of platform has been created in India, which are with regular, consistent, and we are weekly meeting and sharing our expertise or knowledge in our field to every occupational therapist all over the India. So moving to my topic, so this is not exactly one any research paper. This is about a whole research project and what we got through the research project and what we concluded and how did we implement in our daily practice. So I will be sharing these my experience of that research project. So the title for this project is Moving Out from Clinical Settings, a task and context-specific intervention for Parkinson's disease. A small disclosure, so all the client-related videos and photographs, which we will be sharing subsequently, there are quite a few, has only obtained only for the research purpose. So none or any part of the thing can be reproduced without any further consent. This is a small photograph, rather, I would say, video of very famous personality many of us would be aware about, Muhammad Ali, the goat of wrestling. And in one of the Olympics, how he is lifting the baton and with struggling his disease that is called Parkinson disease. When you hear about Parkinson's, we always feel that person is trapped somewhere. So I have basically, when we see trap, so I divided into these small things like what are the symptoms we generally notice in Parkinson disease: the tremor, the rigidity of the limbs, akinesia or bradykinesia or slowness in the movement, and there is a lot more in the postural instability, which we generally occur or find. When we tell about postural instability or something, gradually it becomes more of quite evident when as it is a progressive disease, and it makes them vulnerable in like fall and fall related injuries, and which gradually limit them in participating their day-to-day activities. ultimately leading to a very reduced or minimal quality of life. So before going to the objective, the research question, or the rather than the research question, where the research question arise is when we used to practice a lot of Parkinson disease interventions in our clinical setup. We always tend to know that although the patients were performing quite well throughout the intervention process during the clinical setting, however, somewhere they were not able to replicate or make it much more visible towards their day-to-day participation in life. Ultimately, the dependency is somehow the same on the caregiver or the parents. So the research idea was more about to check a feasibility and potential effect of an individual task and context specific training apart from the clinical setting, and see its effects on the basic day-to-day activities like ADL and how it is impacting the quality of life in patients with Parkinson's disease. It was a pre-test and post-test experimental study design, but it was carried through almost 2 years. So I named it more of a longitudinal study. So we did a follow-up almost in every 6 months till 2 years after the intervention. So total number of patients were 78. We randomizedly distributed into both two groups, and all of them were with taking anti-Parkinson or levodopa. The screening tools we used basically to screen out, we took it more of when a classification stage 2 and stage 3, because 1 is hardly there are any limitation, and where we see the 4 and 5 categories, there are more of they are hardly able to ambulate or walk independently. And to screen out any cognitive impairment, we use mini mental status examination, score more 25 or more, we did it. The outcomes we use basically are functional independence measure FIM to check the ADL, activities of daily living, unified Parkinson's disease rating scale and its scale and motor subscales, Parkinson disease questionnaire PDQ 39% used for to check the quality of life, and we also measure the falls as well as the fall efficacy scale by T90. So this was the randomized